There in Twitch TV land. Give me a moment. So I'm going to put on the please stand by. Hello, everybody at Twitch TV land, YouTube, Facebook, whatever. Yeah, one of my favorite lines was I forgot the game. I think it was Eamon for the Apple II. When you start up the game, it takes a while to load files from disk, and when it does it, it puts up "Please stand by, waking up the monsters." Well, today's post is Unity 3D or how to follow in Musk's footsteps and taking a company straight into the ground. I mean, I heard that people within Unity reviewed what they posted today, but they didn't understand what they posted today. Context. Up until now, Unity 3D has been available under several tiers. They had a plus tier, a personal tier, pro, and enterprise. What it means is that when you download Unity 3D, a game generating program that'll at many games, something like about 70 or 80%, somewhere in that range of all games currently made on mobile and on Steam are made with Unity. So as a result, they went ahead and made this pricing policy where you just get the free version of the editor. You can make your own little demo, make cute little games with it. And if you don't make any money, it doesn't matter. You can just release it for free and you're good. It might put up a Made with Unity logo saying, I didn't pay for the editor, but that's fine. And then you have a plus version, which allows you to get access to certain consoles and mobile devices. But then if you get paid the pro version, which is, by the way, around $2,000 a year, this is a recurring fee. It's not like pay $2,000, you're done. No, every year you have to pay $2,000. It allows you to do development on the Xbox, the PlayStation, the Switch. Now, granted, you need other licenses or other things that you have to go through to get them, but you need the pro version or an enterprise version. And the enterprise version is basically if you have to ask, you can't afford it, kind of thing. Well, Unity has been having financial troubles lately. This is well documented. Just Google it. There's numerous things about how they had layoffs. They had to do some belt tightening and stuff. So it is not a secret. Unity 3D has been having some financial issues today. Plus the fact, as you may know, there was a writer's strike recently that's still going on even to this day, that Unity owns a company called Weta, W-E-T-A, who is based in New Zealand, and they're a special effects film company who's most famous for doing the special effects in the Lord of the Rings trilogy. And you could be certain that probably Weta has been having a bit belt tightening because productions are no longer starting up because of the writer's strike. So, as you can also imagine, that also didn't help Unity. Well, in the masterclass of how could we possibly piss off all of our loyal Unity users and creators, let's go ahead and be a vampire and go, it's Morbin time, and attach yourself to their arm and drain them dry. What I mean is this. This morning, I get an email from Unity because I happen to have a Unity Plus account. I pay them their $400-ish every year so that I can have a copy of Unity so I can do games and developments and sometimes evaluations, etc. Fine and dandy. But then I get this email saying, oh, by the way, that plan that you have, we're no longer going to honor it. What we're going to do is let it go to renewal, but we're not going to renew it. But we're going to magnanimously let you have a Unity Pro license at the Unity Plus price for just 1 year. And then after that, open up a vein because we're going for that full $1,200 a year or whatever the pricing is for Unity. Let me take a look here. Unity Pro is $2,000. So going from $400 a year, because I only tinker with Unity. I don't actually use it for game development, but I tinker it. I need it for doing evaluations or something, to $2,000 a year because, there's your answer, because. And, wait, there's more. It's not sold in any store. And that is, we are now going to charge you for every copy of a game that you make with Unity if you go over a certain download limit. This is the one that just makes me go, what were they thinking? What brilliant, what megamind in intellect came up with the idea of, hey, let's not charge them based on how much profit they made. No. Let's go just do it simply. However many times your game is downloaded, we will then charge you per download. Now, on the surface, that sounds like, that sounds reasonable. If I have a game and it's downloaded 1 million times, I must have sold 1 million copies. Therefore, I should have several $1,000,000. I should be able to write a check to Unity for, let's say, $200,000. No. Let's just do this scenario, shall we? Let's just do this. I will make a little simple game in Unity in which you have an unpopular political figure. He's standing by a cliff, or she, and then you kick him in the nards and they go off the cliff and they go screaming into the deepness. That's all it does. Just see the person just appear, say something stupid, you kick them off the cliff, and you listen to them go, ah! Fine and dandy. And, during some political campaigns, people will download something like that. Say, play that on your phone for about maybe 5 minutes, novelty goes off, and you may even delete it because it's wasting space. But that's all the game does. Now, before the dark times, that is September 12th, 2023, I could easily just take my Unity Plus license, make such a game, post it up on Steam, or even just have a direct link on my website, put it up on Google Play or Apple for free, and let people download it, have a couple million copies downloaded because, it's election season, so if the political person is really unpopular, it's not that hard to imagine 1 million copies are downloaded. And a couple months later, I get this email from Unity saying, hey, that thing that you created that went viral and got 5 million downloads because someone really didn't like that person and wanted to kick them in the nards? Please send us a check for $1 million because it's 20 cents per download because you happen to use Unity Plus or Unity Student. Don't believe me? Look at their pricing structure. The pricing structure is, I'm going to pull it up here. Whoops. In fact, let me go to left monitor. There's our pricing structure. As you can see here, it says, if I scroll up, if I'm using Unity Personal or Unity Plus, if I, for even from 1 to 1 million, doesn't matter, it's 20 cents per install. so that if my wonderful application, for whatever reason, has 5 million downloads because it went viral, I am now on the hook to Unity for $1 million because I happen to have gotten lucky that people like the game I spent literally an afternoon putting together went viral. What were they thinking? Like, are they now basically saying, hey, you know what? We really, really, really don't want you to use Unity anymore. You know that there's a thing called Godot that's completely free? Maybe you can make your little Nard extraction program and to go viral. Why don't you use that instead? Because at least it's free, and I don't have to worry about the Unity police coming after me saying, you owe us $1 million because it was downloaded 5 million times. A person says, Master Villa says, doesn't it specify you need a revenue structure? No, it says either or. It has to be both either or. If I get, I think it was like, let me look in the structure here. The structure is either it's 200,000 copies or $200,000, whichever comes first. So therefore, now granted, they're probably going to adjust this. I'm certain of that because the backlash on this is going to be legendary. I see this as being another Wizards of the Coast D&D free license that happened. There was a open source license to use the Dungeons and Dragons rules in your games that was created a long time ago that allowed you to use Dungeons and Dragons rules in third-party products that work with Dungeons and Dragons. But then sometime about 6 months ago, Wizards of the Coast issued a revision of the license, which meant everybody had to pay money, and it ended up that the backlash was so bad that Wizards of the Coast rescinded the entire license and said, let's go back to the old way. I hope, for Unity's sake, that they realize the error of their ways and goes back to the older pricing structure. And if they really need money, they need to find something a little bit more sane or something without so many loopholes that, woohoo, hi, Math Mushroom. Something without so many loopholes that is just asking for trouble. Like, here's this. Let's say that your game meets their certain thresholds, but now you get dinged for every download. How do you know it was downloaded and what qualifies as a download? I was asking some of my teammates here at Old School, we were asking rhetorical questions, such as like, does installing the game on my PC, then I have to wipe the machine, reinstall Windows, put all that stuff in there, and then I re-download it. It's the same game. I paid for it on Steam. Does that count as 2 downloads? What if I have I bought the game on Steam and I install it on 5 machines? Even though I'm the only one who plays the game, I just happen to have 5 machines. Does that count as 5 downloads? What if somebody, like, here's something really evil. Let's say that there's a software developer out there that you hate, and you really dislike them so much that you want to make them have a big, big bill. What's to stop you from finding out that they made a game in Unity? You hire a Russian botnet to just download the game from all sorts of sources, run the game, and then use VMs and so forth to pretend that you're multiple downloads. Does that count? And so therefore, like, let's say I have a game out there that was written in Unity. Somebody out there decided, you know what? I'm going to get Rebecca Heinemann because she's Rebecca Heinemann. And quite honestly, I've had people like that. So they would go ahead and use a botnet to go ahead and download this game, run it once to be able to register it, and then delete the game. And then all of a sudden, I get this bill from Unity saying, oh, by the way, congratulations on your game downloading 22 million times last month. And I'm like, but I've only sold 20,000 copies. Does that count? How about this? I make a game and I put it up on Steam. This game's on Steam. I'm making some sales. Everything's good and happy. And then Samurai Ichiban Daisy Wheel Limited of Hong Kong downloads that game, hacks it to be able to change the trademark from old school to Samurai Ichiban, renames the game to something else, and sells it on some website in India for $1. Then they sell a couple thousands of copies. How does Unity know that those downloads didn't count? Do you see my logic here? When you do something by download, how do you know what counts as a download and what doesn't? Because before it was the revenue stream, which is simple. Just go to Steam or go to Old Games and say, hey, how many copies did you sell of XYZ game? And then it would tell Unity, oh yeah, that XYZ game sold 570 copies, or if you happen to be Undertale, 1 million copies. Then at that point, they will then tell Unity, here's how many they sold, and then they say, okay, we figured out this is your revenues, show us your books. Oh yeah, they match. This is your payment. Done. Especially since it works in the fact that if I receive this amount of revenue, then at least I have the money to pay the bill. Not, oh, we think people downloaded your game 22 million times. Why? Because the little tracking software we put in the Unity engine that we never told you about, but is definitely there, has said a game built by this license of Unity created this build, and now it ran in this game machine, which has some magic number. They then sent it to the home world, who then said, oh, that particular build has been installed 22 billion times. Why? Because I update the game every 3 days. Does that count as an install? So it just boggles the mind about how badly this was thought out. Yeah. And of course, one viewer here, MC Wild 77, asks, is this retroactive? And my answer is, God, I hope not. Because if it's retroactive, it's like, well, let me go ahead and get not only my razors to cut my wrists, but let me get a chainsaw for the neck, because just to make sure. Or, called Guillotines R Us. They're able to go ahead and chop the heads off of the executives who basically watch their companies go straight down to the burning gates of hell. It's like, what? MC Wild asks, how is that even remotely legal retroactively? Well, the issue is that, anything's legal as long as the parties agree to it and that there is no law that says that is illegal. From what I'm understanding, these rules, that the new rules that Unity presented to us to come in, whether we like it or not, is not available today. It's supposed to start someplace around December or December or January or something like that. I have to actually look to see when they come into effect. January 1st, 2024. So basically, we're still with the old licensing until January 1st, 2024. Then after that, you could basically kiss your royalties goodbye. But it's just back to, there's so many ways you could abuse this. It's not funny. Because if it's based on installs, how do you know you're installing it to a VM? How do you know that you actually sold by you, because it could be pirated? How do you know? Let's see. Tarna23 asks, oh, good Gord, I'm getting started with stuff in this. This is not good stuff to hear. Let's see. This is Nightmarish from Jared Khalif. Master Evil Lace. Cool. Kudos. Doesn't it specify you need 200,000 revenue? No, that's a free game, would never hit it. Okay. Master Evil Lace, you said also saying a free game would never hit it. Well, does that also count free to play? Which is, it's free to download, but they have in-game purchases? See, that's the reason why there's either you have this many downloads or you have this much money. Because if it's a free-to-play game, you download it for free, and technically you're not earning any revenue, but those ads are generating revenue. And the ads don't show up in your Apple user account. That money comes in through your ad revenue things. So, which is why they said, well, if your game downloaded 200,000 times, then probably you're one of those free to play games that is ad revenue based. So, to cover your bases is, hey, you had 200,000 downloads. You obviously must be making money, not watching an unpopular political figure being shoved off of a cliff, and no ads. Come on, no ads. Wonderful. MC Wild says Unity's going to tell you how many were downloaded. Yeah, they probably will, because I'm certain that Unity has software in there which is tracking the number of installs, the number of unique machines. Now, granted, there's no user identifiable information in there, because that would be a huge policy no-no. But it is enough to say, hey, we've noticed that your application that was signed by this particular license of Unity happens to be installed on 22 million PCs, Macs, consoles, whatever. Here's the bill. Enjoy. Soy Unbonus asks, most of those cases won't probably happen, but we can't be sure. They haven't been specific at all. Well, therein is the point, is that there's too many vague questions about this pricing policy. Another one wrote, I've also heard they've retracted the whole charity clause, supposedly because none of the higher-ups even realize that that was a thing and have no means of tracking that. Ah, the charity clause. Okay, that's one I skipped over. They did say that if... they once had a draft that stated that if you did an application for a charity, let's say you wanted to do a game in honor of, let's say, One Up, or was it Extra Life, which is a well-known charity by gamers to raise money for children's hospitals. That one should be totally free, because you're not really making any money. It's all going to charity. How would you know if the downloads count and so forth? Or basically, how would you know that the application's even a game? Now, I did notice in the new agreement that stated it only affects games, but what defines a game? I mean, like, what if you had an application made by, let's just make this up. Let's just say XYZ Realtor has an application. They want to be able to do walkthroughs through people's homes, so that you put your home on the market, XYZ Corp pulls up the blueprints, uses some app to create a 3D model of the interior of your house. They then spend some time, making it look really pretty, and then they give away the app on their phone saying, hey, XYZ has 15 listings. Here's a listing of this house here. You could check it out right now. Look inside the house, use a VR headset, and see if you want to buy the house. But that's not a game. But it technically is a game. So does it count for the downloads? Does it count for the revenue? Heck, does the percentage of the house that was sold because the app was used to generate the sale, does that count on the revenue? There are so many ways that this could fall apart because of this issue. Another person goes, it's partially retro, partially install, average user revenue. Let's see here. I heard the average user revenue free-to-play mobile app is about 60 cents. Publishers are going to love that turning into 40. Yeah, wouldn't be surprised. Yeah, they just love giving it. Now, granted, I will say that the 20 cents per install, that's the worst case scenario, because you'd have to be using Unity, what's it called, Personal or Unity Plus, to be at that tier. If you had Unity Pro or Unity Enterprise, then it's a sliding scale, which can go as low as a little as 1 cent per install. But even 1 cent per install, if you do 1 million installs, even at 1 cent, that's $10,000. That's the minimum they want. And that would be that you have in Unity Enterprise, which is, again, Unity, if you have to ask what it costs, you can't afford it kind of level of pricing, and then you make your game using that, then you can be in the tier that after you have 1 million copies installed, then you only have to pay $10,000. Yeah. And of course, remember, it's a sliding scale, so therefore the way it works is for the first 100,000, it's like 12 cents per install. So you're still on the hook for about $12,000 for the first 100,000. then it's 6 cents per install. I'm looking at the chart for the next 400,000. So do a little math, that's $24,000. So even though you do 1,000,000, you think it's one, but it's only 1 cent per copy beyond 1,000,000. So you're not going to get $10,000 bill. You're actually going to be paying somewhere around 40, 50,000 before you get to that. Oh, for the every next million you get for 1 penny. I'll have to go check this out later. But so either way, you're screwed. Just the sheer amount of money that they're asking for this based on installs. And of course, this goes back to if you could guarantee every copy installed came from Steam, Good Old Games, the Apple Store, Google Play, where you have control over its distribution, it could be massaged and worked into something that might be palatable for both parties. Right now, it's not. But if you don't have anything in there, because I have not read anything in there saying that, oh, by the way, there's a writer in here that if we determine your downloads are because of some pirate site or because somebody was repackaging your game as their own because they are just copyright ignorers, you got to make certain that those don't count against these royalties. Let's see. I'm hearing Unity's president sold 37,500 shares before the announcement. Well, that would be called insider trading now, wouldn't it? It's not retroactive. It's back to that they buy and install a game after this takes place. The biggest issue, the model is greedy, that the model isn't tied to any reasonable metrics. So if you charge a 200% cut or more, not every game makes more than 20 cents per install, and doesn't mean it's a bad game. Okay, let me go rehash this. Town Eater writes, the biggest issue isn't that the model is greedy, is that the model isn't tied to any reasonable metrics. So you could be charged a 200% cut or more. Not every game makes more than 20 cents per install. Doesn't mean it's a bad game, and that is correct. Just because your game is installed doesn't mean you make any money on it. Even if it's a free-to-play where it makes money on ads or something like that, the game could only, the person installs the game, plays it for like about 10 minutes, gets bored, says, you know what, not really. And they only got to see maybe 20, 30 ads, which only generates a penny, maybe 2 cents in ad revenue. And then in that case, now you're on the hook for 20 cents if you have that other tier. If you happen to own Enterprise, which is the highest tier, you're still on the hook for 12 cents maximum for that install. So it's already, right now in the free-to-play market, it's already insane how much money you have to spend on advertising in order for you to get people to install your game. And now you're going to tack this on? Gee, thanks. Someone says, so if you made $200,000 in a game that I shipped in 2015 and had $1 million downloads due to a PS5 Plus promotion, we're on the hook if we sell another $200,000 worth of revenue from December onward? Yeah. And in fact, there is an article that was just posted by someone called Aggro Crab, which brought up an interesting point. There are promotions run by Epic Games and by Microsoft with the Xbox Game Pass. What they do is they pay you money anywhere from $10,000 to $50,000. Now, they expect you to be using one of your older games because, a game that's no longer selling at full price. And you like to maybe get a bunch of people to install your game in the hopes of selling them some DLC or soundtracks. So what they will do is they'll pay you a set amount of money, and in exchange, you will be the game that's free to download on the Epic Games Store. Like if you go to Epic Games right now, open up the browser inside of the Epic Games Store, there will almost always be a game you could just download for free. That normally would be anywhere from $9.95 to even $59.95. But for some reason, for a limited time only, it's free. And of course, those games get downloaded anywhere from 50,000 to 1 million times, depending on popularity. So you get your check for $50,000. I'm just using that number as an example. Their numbers will vary. Let's say you get 50,000. Well, then Unity will come and say, hey, guess what? Because you download this after January 1st, 2024, that game that you're not really selling more copies of, you just downloaded 1.5 million copies off of Epic Games Store because you got a $50,000 paycheck. Thank you. Or how about the Xbox Game Pass? They do have monthly things, and they do the same thing with many of those developers. Because unless the game's actually made by Microsoft, then that doesn't matter because it's their own games. But for third parties, they go to them and say, hey, would you allow us to take your game on the Xbox, put it on Xbox Game Pass? In exchange, we'll give you a check for, uncertain amount of money. But, you're never going to get the money anyways because you're only selling like 100 copies of the game every month. So you might be able to buy dinner with that. But here's a very large check. And it's like, sure, I'll sign that check. And now, like Xbox Live, there's as many as 25 million people on Xbox Live. So in that period of a month, as many as 25 million people can download your game. They may never even play it, but they will download it because why not? It's free. And now I'm on the hook for this. Goodbye, money. What about that? They need to put that in their little agreement too. So it's like, oh boy. Let's see. So we've made, what if you need to update the game and it doesn't get integration? You'll be screwed. Installing multiple devices counts, as does reinstalling a game. Okay, this is something that was brought up. This Steve guy writes, as far as installs are concerned, installing the game on multiple devices counts as installing as on that number. So every time someone downloads the game, cha-ching, as much as from 1 penny to 20 cents. So what's to stop me to go onto Steam, delete the game, reinstall, delete the game, reinstall, knowing that every time I do that, I'm generating revenue for Unity and sucking a poor developer of their revenue just because I'm being a bitch. Which goes back to my earlier statement of what's to stop me from creating a botnet to download a specific game, especially free-to-play, onto a million machines in some sort of botnet or VMs, delete the, maybe even run it once and delete the game just to bring up the numbers, just to give a bill to some developer because I hate their guts. What's to stop me from doing that? Because now you have a developer who's going to get some sticker shock, and now they're going to have to go through this rigmarole to prove themselves innocent. Let's put it this way. I would not want that kind of I would not want to have that kind of aggravation where I get some sort of bill and again, it says 1 million downloads and I look at my Steam numbers and I'm like, these numbers don't jive. What the hell? A person says, probably common for a gamer to install your game on your PC and your Steam Deck. Says, how do they even track and install? Phone home installers? Okay, Real Sergeant Creepy says, asks, how do they even track and install? Phone home installers? No. See, the thing is that with Unity, the player is closed source. Unless you have a very, very expensive license with Unity, you can't get their source code. So you don't know what's in the player. And it's very, very likely that for something like this, they're going to install in their player a piece of software that when the game starts up, it will identify the machine, make some sort of magic heuristics that will give it a unique identity number for the computer or phone or console, whatever it is. It'll get the serial number of what version of Unity and the license that was generated the game, so they will know who made the game, what license it was under when they made the game, and this unique number. They will then send it to some server Unity controls. Unity's server will then say, oh, we already know this machine, throw it out. But, oh, this is a machine we've never seen before. Add it to the total and log it saying, anytime the person installs, and this is the first time it's run, we're good. Now we go ahead and add it to the total, and since we now know who made the build, because the serial number and stuff is embedded inside the Unity player, it's used for licensing purposes, then they will know, okay, Old School made this game, XYZ downloaded it and played it on their computer, and of course I have no idea who they are, but the Unity player rats on it, tells them to which Unity can hand me a bill. Glitched Heart writes, saw someone mention earlier creating an install bot to attack developers that had in-game content that didn't agree with it. Well, that goes back to what I was saying earlier, is what's to stop someone from using a Russian botnet, or any botnet, it doesn't have to be Russian, it could be anybody can make a botnet, to just simply download an application, run it either in VMs or in real machines, or a combination of both, and then just delete it, change the machine's heuristics so it identifies as a new one, and we play this all over again. And since it does appear to be in the rules that just downloading the game a second time counts as another install, you could give a build to a developer you really would like to see get ruined. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if there's a massive attack on EA starting on January 1st, considering that they were voted 2 times in a row as the most hated corporation in America. But even EA doesn't need that kind of aggravation. Maybe they do. I don't know. Real Sergeant Crispy writes, crazy madness. Yes. Steam family sharing. One small purchase can be installed on multiple family members. Yeah. Funny that. Someone says, can we assume that Unity has been phoning home install numbers since the early 2010s? MC Wild 77, since we can't see in the black box, and unless you want to install a network scraper onto your machine, so that basically will grab every network packet, and then you install your game, see what network packets are going, and see if any of them are trying to go to a server that's controlled by Unity. You really can't tell as to when and if, or even if this thing exists. But anybody who's doing this kind of pricing structure, you know for certain that they've either already put some sort of phone home mechanism on the player, or the player starting in January 1st, 2024 is going to have that. Someone say, or capture the install phone home network web traffic and play it over and over. Yeah, that's one way to piss off someone. Glitch Tark was writing, capture the output of your computer saying that you installed it, and send whatever that packet is over and over again to Unity server, and hope the server is dumb enough that every time you send the packet, it adds another receipt to the bill. And that's going to be fun to explain. Howdy Doody writes, what happens if competing game companies botnet each other's games to eliminate competition? My point exactly. I mean, the moment that there's any sort of a heuristic, which really can't be predicted, or anytime you have a heuristic that can't be either predicted or controlled and can be hacked, especially something like this, that's not a heuristic you should be using. I mean, you can use installs from, let's say, the Apple Store, installs from the Google Play Store. But because of the fact that it actually has been asked around, because I've heard that Mike Mika was saying that he heard, and also George Broussard were posting on X, stating that they were already hearing that part of this licensing is every recurring reinstall counts. That's something that they're probably right now at Unity are getting ready to use the red marking pen and removing it from the contract, because that is like begging, absolutely begging for abuse. But that's really what I wanted to say right now, is just that a company that comes up with a pricing policy that's one of those looks good on paper policies, but didn't really ask game developers or factor in that there are other scenarios, like me creating an application where an unpopular political candidate gets pushed off a cliff repeatedly, and that's all the app does. It's free, no ads, I generate no revenue, but if it gets 5 million installs, I'm bankrupt. Based on this agreement. So the lesson to be learned here is either start switching to Godot today, or if you want that application where somebody gets kicked off a cliff, you've got until January 1st, 2024 before you have to take it off the App Store. Let's see. MeWild77 writes, Becky, I'm looking forward to Candidate Nard Kicker 2024. Please write it in your own engine. Sure, why not? It's not like there isn't already a Flash game that I saw, and because that's why I brought it up as an example. There was somebody made a game in Flash that essentially is a presidential candidate who basically is shoved off a cliff saying some of their phrases before going off the cliff. And I, of course, played it for like 3 or 4 minutes, got bored, and never played it again. But it is amusing, and there's nothing that says somebody couldn't just find that Flash app, extract the art, put it into Unity, and release it. But now, if I was to do it, it would definitely be going in Godot because when you have a free open source engine that's just being made by a community and there's no company even behind it, and there's no one out there who has any authority whatsoever to come and retroactively say, we need some royalties, please. That's an engine I can get behind. Whereas Unity now has already changed the rules several times to the point where what are they going to change it to next? I am expecting, personally, this is my own speculation of my own opinion. And everything I've said in this entire video is, again, my own opinion based on certain facts, which I have presented. I think that Unity is probably within the next week or two going to be rescinding a vast majority of this licensing agreement. Probably if anything, they'll just simply rescind Unity Plus, make everybody go on to Unity Pro, which means a lot of people are going to stop using Unity or just go to Unity Personal, because there's no point in spending the money on Unity. And the people making free games or just cute little apps are just going to move to another engine, because you cannot, in good conscience, use anything with a license that even remotely looks like this with any kind of payment per install. I mean, that's got to go. If that's anything with per install, got to go. It's got to be back to, if you make this much money and you actually have money coming in, then sure, we'll take a piece of that. That works, and that is kind of fair. If you have this much profit, it should be okay to give a little bit of it, like a little bit, to Unity for helping you out. But don't make some arbitrary thing where without even trying, I've made like 8 or 9 scenarios in which your bill could be inflated to the stratosphere. You have no say in this, and they're going to come to you with a bill that's going to be insane, and you're going to ask, Narc Kicker 2024, I have to pay $1 million because it went viral? Well, teach me for going viral. And with that, I'm going to move on. Oh, one more question. Wait, there's more. Scott Mada writes, happy to see you in our camp, Godot. Intend to go to GodotCon in November? This is the first time I've ever heard of GodotCon. However, though, I am working with some people with the Godot engine and so forth to try to set up a repository in GitHub, which will have things like the Switch, the PlayStation, Xbox versions, because as I was talking with Nintendo, the main reason that they're kind of not telling people to go to Godot is that they want to have something that's centralized, like SDL has. Because SDL is kind of controlled by one person, and that person has GitHub accounts that if you prove to him that you have a license, then he will give you access to the GitHub accounts that have SDL's Switch, PlayStation, Xbox, etc. Like I have access to those repositories because I'm an actual licensee. But they need somebody who they can hold accountable so that therefore if the source code to SDL, Xbox, PlayStation, etc. ends up in the wild, they can then track it down to who released it. I'm trying to work with the people who are maintaining the Godot repository on GitHub to see if we can work something where somebody is the repository. I don't actually want to be that person. I have too much other stuff to deal with. But, if it's something where, if it's the only way, I'll do it. But I'm trying my best not to. So Scott Mata, I'm production team member. Haha. All right, then let's talk privately. Let me see here. How do I send you a private message in this silly thing? Okay, how about this? Go to Twitter, X, whatever the hell they're calling themselves today, or Threads, or Facebook, or whatever. I'm Burger Becky on everything. Send me a DM. We'll talk. How Howdy Doody writes, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think you need to have achieved a certain revenue value before these per install charges, so totally free titles going viral will necessarily be affected. Actually, the draft that I saw of the license agreement that I was sent actually said this or that. They may have changed it to this and that, which would be smart. But the one I actually got in private email from Unity saying, congratulations, we're getting you upgraded to Unity Pro, but we're going to start charging you $2,000 a year starting next year, actually had the word or in the license. So, thankfully, hopefully, if it is saying and, then they change the word. And that's one step in the right direction, but the per install pricing plan is got to go. Flat out, gotta go. Because again, too many scenarios where, just too many scenarios for abuse. There you go. Anyways, hope that everybody liked listening to my 45-ish minutes of absolute dribble, and we'll be back sometime whenever I have another topic to talk about. And, again, like and subscribe, go in YouTube, and leave comments to basically let me know what topics you would maybe want to explore in the future, and I will go find a rock to crawl back under because it's so cozy down there. So I will talk to you all later as I crawl back under my rock.